Boxing Truth here. Let's talk about this fight, Mayweather-McGregor. The event happening later this year in the late summer, August 26th. It's a fight that I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but it's happening. Might as well embrace it, talk about it a little bit. It's going to generate interest no matter what people say. The casuals will be interested. The UFC fans will be interested. Mayweather fans will be interested. It's not a fight I'll pay $5 for or even $1, but I'll listen to it on the radio somehow and give my 2 cents about it in this video, and that's that. And this is a fight that's actually somewhat dangerous for Floyd. This is actually a fight where Floyd is in danger of passing the torch to an MMA fighter, which could be very damaging and very embarrassing for the sport if Floyd Mayweather was to lose this fight. This fight has me torn. I hate Floyd Mayweather. I'm not a fan of his at all. Haven't been ever since his Pretty Boy Floyd days. Once he moved out of the lightweight division, once he left Top Rank, once he started cherry picking and doing all these antics, his behavior, his way of avoiding threats in the boxing world for a number of years, it pretty much just made me anti-Floyd. I'm just not a Floyd Mayweather fan for a number of reasons, like the ones I just stated. But when it comes to this fight, as a boxing fan, you naturally root for Floyd over an MMA fighter, for the good of the sport, to keep the sport on top, and for a boxer to prove that, you can't just be an all-around fighter and get in the ring and whoop ass at the top level, which is what Conor McGregor is attempting to do. But the thing is, I'm a fan of Conor McGregor. He is everything the opposite of Floyd Mayweather. He's willing to take risks. He's willing to put it all on the line. He's willing to fight the badasses 2 divisions up above him. He doesn't cherry pick. He's willing to fight the top guys in his sport. And he's willing to jump up weight divisions, move up from featherweight to lightweight, even willing to fight the welterweight champion in his division, in his sport of the UFC. So McGregor represents everything the opposite of Floyd. He's willing to take risks. He's not willing to cherry pick. He's willing to fight the threats. And now he's taking on this tremendous challenge of fighting the regarded best fighter in the world of this past generation in his first fight as a professional prize fighter. What McGregor's doing is, obviously he's doing it for the profile, the money, and the chance to topple a legend in another sport. But people view Mayweather, the narrative that I'm hearing about this fight is that it's a mismatch. McGregor can't box. He'll get knocked the fuck out within 6 rounds or whatever. But it's another false narrative, just like the false narrative that was being thrown out there with the Manny Pacquiao fight against Jeff Horn. Just because you don't know who Jeff Horn is prior to the fight doesn't mean the guy can't fight. And the narrative was that Horn is not ready. He's unknown. And he'll get knocked out, even though Manny Pacquiao hadn't knocked anybody out for a number of years, since 2009. And he was fighting a young, strong, fresh guy, much bigger than he is. And it baffled me that people thought that he was just going to steamroll this guy, even though Jeff Horn was very strong, big for the division, and much more dangerous than compared to Manny Pacquiao's last 2 opponents prior to Jeff Horn. So it baffled me that people thought Pacquiao was going to run right through this guy at 38, fighting a much younger, fresher guy and bigger guy in Jeff Horn. Well, the same applies here in this Mayweather-McGregor fight. McGregor hasn't boxed as a professional. He does have a boxing background. He has an all-around fighting background. He's a guy that doesn't just use his hands for fighting. He's a guy that's used to defending against a number of weapons in the octagon. So now he's going to be defending it just against 2 weapons in the ring. So maybe he could have an advantage since he's more so used to avoiding and dodging numerous weapons in the fight. Now he only has to dodge two weapons, which is Floyd Mayweather's two fists. So maybe he could be in an advantage considering that he's an all-around fighter. But the narrative is that Mayweather will knock McGregor out. Even though Mayweather's not a puncher, Mayweather's 40 years old. He's coming off a 2-year layoff. There's rumblings that Mayweather hasn't really been as active in retirement, that he was pretty much it looked like for a while that this was it, that he wasn't going to come back. But then this opportunity came by. He wanted to fight because obviously he needs money. But he's in danger of passing the torch to an MMA fighter. I mean, Floyd Mayweather is not the fighter he once was. Not even close. He's, from what I see, and this is why I see this fight differently compared to many others, because I don't view Floyd as highly as others do. All I see right now is a fighter that's way past his prime. He's way past it physically. He's not a fighter that has looked good in quite some time. He's looked like trash in his last few fights. Looked terrible against Berto. Couldn't do shit to him. He couldn't do shit to Manny Pacquiao. He almost lost to Maidana the first time, and he needed Kenny Bayless to protect him in the rematch to really be effective in that fight. He wasn't really that effective at all in that fight, but he was protected by Kenny Bayless, so he was able to get a more clear-cut victory over Maidana the second time, even though that fight is unwatchable after 3 rounds. So Mayweather's coming into this fight. He has no momentum. 2 years off. A lot of shitty performances. He needs protection and corruption lately to win his fights. This is a guy who is clearly past his best, no longer operating at a high level, and now he's fighting and in his prime, much more a physical specimen, a much bigger guy, fresher, stronger, younger, and an awkward athletic guy in Conor McGregor. Now, if McGregor was simply just a wrestler, a grappler, then yeah, this fight would be a mismatch, a complete mismatch, since that type of fighter doesn't have any striking skills. But the thing is, McGregor does have striking skills. He's a southpaw, a stance that really troubles Floyd. He's a guy that has a very good straight left hand. He throws good combination. This guy got hands. He's got good footwork too. He has actually good stand-up skills as well. He can counter punch. He can move his head. He can throw combinations. So he has speed and power. We just don't know how effective he is with 10-ounce gloves. And considering McGregor has already revealed that Mayweather put in the contract that he couldn't use gloves, Mexican brand gloves. He couldn't use no Reyes gloves or gloves made with horsehair, which is considered a puncher's glove. So that will put McGregor at a more disadvantage. But Mayweather has to perform much better than he did in his last few fights, and that could be a tall order. Coming off a 2-year layoff, yeah, he's fighting a guy with no professional prize fighting experience, but this is a fighter. This is a guy that's in shape. This is a guy that's a physical specimen. This is a guy that has been training. He's been fighting, and he's no boxer, but he doesn't have to go in there and outbox Floyd. He has to go in there and fight him. He has to go in there and outpunch him. He has to go in there and land big punches. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to outbox Floyd. But this is a guy that could hold his own in the striking game. This guy he's longer, he's taller, he's bigger. And if Floyd Mayweather's not careful, the same thing could happen to him, like what's happened to Manny Pacquiao numerous times. He could get robbed. Say McGregor does better than expected, actually wins a few rounds. Maybe he wins 4 rounds. Maybe he wins 5 rounds. And you have to look at this fight. Who has the upside here? It's Conor McGregor. He's in his prime. He's 29. He's an icon. He's a superstar, just like Floyd Mayweather. The powers that be are probably looking towards a McGregor victory, since a McGregor victory will produce bigger paydays. Another one-sided, boring Mayweather decision that could be bad for business. So this fight, it's a little. If you're a Mayweather fan, it could be a little nerve-wracking because you look at this guy in McGregor. He's white. He's a superstar. He's a charismatic figure. He's he's it. He has it. I really wish McGregor was a boxer. He'd be a huge star. He's already a big star. I mean, but imagine if McGregor was actually a full-time prize fighter, and he was able to back it up and able to have great performances in the ring. It's too bad he didn't continue with this boxing thing, but he chose another path to be an all-around fighter, a mixed martial arts artist. But what if McGregor wins? What's gonna happen? I haven't heard anybody ask him that question. Will he leave the USC? I don't think he could do that, but will he retire? Would he try to pursue boxing? Would he continue boxing? So Mayweather has to be careful, man. I'm torn with this fight. I'm just not a Mayweather fan, but if he gets chin checked, if he gets dropped, if he gets KO'd by an MMA fighter, I don't care how bad it is for boxing. That's a sight I would like to see. That's a sight I would pay to see if I knew Mayweather was going to get chin checked by an MMA fighter with zero professional prize fighting experience. Be a major L for Floyd Mayweather and his fans. Be an embarrassment. It would be devastating. But fuck Floyd Mayweather. I am rooting for Conor McGregor. He can actually win this fight. The bookie sees him as an underdog, but not as heavy as actually past Mayweather opponents, which is very interesting. The odds makers see McGregor having a better chance than Maidana or even Robert Guerrero when they were matched up with Floyd. So that makes it even a little more interesting. But Mayweather's got to be careful, man. He's 40 years old. He's got no leverage within the industry. He's done. He's over. It's over for him. One and done after this fight. No longer can put his body through those training camps. And this could be a passing of the torch. It could be a passing of the torch fight. Unfortunately, it won't be against another prize fighter, but an MMA fighter. I don't know how disastrous it will be for boxing if Floyd Mayweather was to lose this fight. But McGregor's coming to win. Confident as hell. Really believes he can pull off a shock upset. But when you really look at it, it may not be such an upset after all. Even though McGregor's never boxed as a professional, he still knows how to fight. And this is the first time Mayweather in his entire career, even though it's not a professional boxer, he's fighting a guy who is in his prime, in his absolute prime, who is bigger, younger, stronger, and not green in terms of fighting experience. This is out of character for Floyd. This is not a type of fight he would take in terms of if he was fighting a guy in his prime, a guy he's never done that in his career. He's mostly waited till those guys faded, fought him at the right times, but now he's fighting a guy who is in his absolute prime. May not be a boxer, but a guy that can still fight, a guy that still has stand-up abilities. It's a more dangerous fight for Floyd than people think, especially if Floyd coming off a 2-year layoff. He's not knocking anybody out. He can't put scratches on his opponent's faces, and he's not going to knock McGregor out. So Mayweather needs to look good in this fight. He needs to have a convincing victory, because any type of fight where McGregor does better than expected, just like in the Jeff Horn Manny Pacquiao fight, then Mayweather's in danger of passing the torch to an MMA fighter. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.